Today's video is going to be a gem of a gem because I have a special guest who's going to tell us a raw story of struggle and hope. Maybe you're the leader of a group, a church, a business, or a family, and then you failed. I'm here to tell you there's hope. Today, I'm talking with Stan, who once was a recovery pastor, and in the midst of huge ministry success, he had a catastrophic relapse. Anyone who acknowledges addictive behaviors in their life is probably also familiar with the term relapse. Relapse is when we return to an addictive behavior that we promised ourselves that we would never do again. Relapse is real.
Relapse is real.
First, I want to say thank you, Stan, for taking the time to talk with us about a subject that, honestly, a lot of people wouldn't talk about. You have always been the type of person to lean into the awkward and uncomfortable and deal with it and talk about it. I've always loved that about you. So tell us how you're doing today. What's new? And feel free to tell us about your story. It'd be good for all of us to know where you're coming from.
So, hi Deb. I'm super happy to be sitting here talking to you. I'm a little bit extra excited because I just finished an incredible meditation. And meditation has just been such an enormous part of my life in these last few years. I'm not like an expert in meditation by any means, but I'm just having a blast. I'm learning in it and I'm growing in it. I've always had a lot of problems with anxiety. I've always had a lot of problems with identity issues. And I also know that I need to be able to tap into like my inner guidance system that God has given me. And all those things I am able to do through a meditation practice, and it's just super, super exciting. Plus being out here in Alaska, indoor activities are encouraged. And so meditation's just been such a wonderful thing, taking advantage of the way we can get boxed in out here in Alaska. And a person could just really become a giant in their inner world. And so one of the things that I've learned through life is that a person's either going to go inward in their problems, like to solve their problems and for guidance and for help, or they're going to turn to outward things. And for me, those outward things have always been very destructive. I'm excited about the things I've been learning and the things I've been growing in. Always been drawn to studying spiritual things. I believe that we are extensions of God here on this earth. I believe Jesus put it like we are his body, members of his body, and I believe that we get to be extensions of his presence, of his love, of his desires, and we get to manifest his care for people in all kinds of different ways. I heard a guy talking the other day about his near-death experience. He left his body the way they do and came before God in this form of wonderful light of love and understanding. But what he said he learned was that God created all these different characters to come and live through, that he wanted to live through all these different characters he created, and we are those characters. Like, I'm one of those characters he created that he wants to live through and to see what it's like to be me on this planet. Now, for some people that's way out there, but I just got pretty excited about listening to the guy's story because it fits so many things. And I know in my experience with religion's always keeping you separate from God and making sure you know how separate you are from Him. But in spirituality, in the God that I know, He's always talking about how we are one with Him and our union with Him, and that kind of closeness. And people that have near-death experiences so often talk about that, merging with God, and what a powerful thing that is. And I absolutely love it. And I believe in the Christian faith, we call that communion. It's super cool. So I was raised during the 70s, and it was a really crazy time to be raised. It was a time of like Led Zeppelin, Fleetwood Mac, bell-bottom pants, those kind of things. Mood rings, we had those. And my parents were real hippies. They were involved in entertainment business, and they wanted to raise us as like little miniature hippies, like little free-range children running around wild and free. And they weren't trying to be like abuse us or harm us. But in light of like, en route to that method of raising us, it led to all those things. It led to a tremendous amount of addiction, a tremendous amount of exposure to a lot of abuse. And it was in so many ways, because my father had a lot of addictions, it was just outright neglect is what it turned into. And even though we had a lot of sexual abuse and drug abuse, and were exposed to a lot of toxic things growing up, I believe the neglect was, for me, one of the most damaging parts of my upbringing. So when I grew up, we didn't have to go to school, we didn't have to clean ourselves or have any kind of discipline that way. I really led a life very early on of a tremendous amount of brokenness, jails, hospitals, overdoses, those kinds of things. And even as a young man, and definitely through my young adult and middle life, I have been at the furthest end of addictions. I became very heavily involved in needle use and the crack cocaine epidemic, and all those things. Been there in some extremely dark places, and places that I just didn't believe I was going to actually get out of. I couldn't even imagine that I was going to get out of those things. And I think in that place of addiction, there was always two huge fears that were part of my life. And the one fear was of ever letting go of my addictions. And the other fear was to continue on the way I was. It was a very miserable existence to live that way. Kind of like pushing a huge rock up a very large hill where you can't continue, but to stop means you're going to be crushed completely. And so you keep going till you can't keep going, type thing.
If you would, Stan, would you talk to us a little bit about recovery and relapse?
Now, when it comes to the subject of relapse, it's something that I've had to look at very heavily. It's been up close and personal in my life ever since my wife and I just went after sobriety, and we went after, trying to lead a functional life. We've been heavily involved in church stuff before, church leadership, and even helping develop groups. They encourage one another towards sobriety and towards a healthy spiritual life. And even in that, I've had my ups and downs, had my struggles, and definitely have had some severe relapses just being around that atmosphere a lot or not doing enough self-care. I mean, for me, it's like a relapse is kind of like a train leaving the station, and that train is made up of thoughts and beliefs and feelings, and if you let that thing go unchecked very long, then it's really, really hard to stop. But if a person learns how to cultivate stillness and get really quiet and learns about self-care and can be aware of the atmosphere that's going on in your heart, then that train doesn't have to leave that station. And I've had to learn through some really, really hard times how to do that self-care, how to pay really close attention. And there's certain people that I just can't be around, certain situations that I work very hard to avoid. And I'm really thankful that my wife supports me in that, and that, you know, we've been really aggressive about that, and so cool. The night that I actually relapsed, and I do realize that relapse begins way, way before the actual actions. It begins in your mind. It begins in all these little ways that add up. But the night that I physically relapsed, I mean, and I won't talk a lot about it, it was super dark. My kidneys shut down. My wife carried me inside. She said the look on my face and in my eyes was just something she couldn't even describe. And my daughter was here, and I was in and out of the hospital. The people in the hospital thought I may not come back mentally. Where I went in my mind was such a dark place, and so horrific and confusing and terrifying. No one would want to hear about it. The only people that would want to hear about it is if someone was trying to put together some kind of horror movie. And when people came to my house, like church officials and different people that cared about me but needed to find out what was going on with me, all I saw was angry people. You know, all I saw was threats and people super, super mad and super angry, and people that didn't have good intentions towards me. And I did a lot of damage to those relationships. Where I went was so awful and dark. And I'm just incredibly thankful for my wife and my daughter that wouldn't leave my side, that were absolutely exhausted for weeks. What I put them through and what I put my community through and the people that loved me, what I put them through, it was just, I can't even express it in words. It's so horrible and so terrible and so costly. So in my own recovery, I know that a lot of times, you know, people mean well because they encourage you to just go for it, and everybody wants that. And there's definitely a ton of stories out there where people let go of those things and they never look back, and those are what we're shooting for. And my wife has been able to do that very successfully. A lot of people's recovery, like mine, is very loopy and windy. It's not just a straight shot. The lessons I've had to learn, the things I've had to let go of, it's been very difficult and very painful at times. But the last time that I personally had a relapse, it was 3.5 years ago, I believe. But it was so devastating to me as a person. It was very public. And I was so crushed personally and so deeply ashamed of the fact that I fell like that, that I really didn't know how to go on. I mean, I was that broken. I was that ashamed. And on top of that, the physical and mental damage I did to myself was just enormous. I didn't even realize the extent of the damage done until, weeks afterwards, and I began trying to live life again, and all these things came up where I had to relearn a lot of things. It was really, really hard. But, I'm so happy that my family just wouldn't let me stay in that hidden place,
So Stan, tell us what your family did. How did they help?
My family really encouraged me to start showing up, and how one of them sent me a teaching on shame that was very, very helpful. How shame melts in light of community, to let myself be seen. And I know a lot of people would probably relate to this, that, when it comes to other people falling off the wagon or failing, we can give them incredible grace and understanding, and we just tell them to get back up and go for it. And it's so easy to give that to other people, but sometimes it's hard for us to give ourselves that grace and to forgive ourselves. And I know for me, it was just something I could not do. It was really, really difficult. And so I'm really, really thankful for my family that just kept showing up and kept planting a lot of seeds and kept encouraging me to come out and to get over it, and to begin making new history and to keep moving forward. It was really, really huge for me, because even though I benefited a lot from keeping to myself, doing a lot of inner work, doing some counseling, working on my marriage, there's that community aspect of it that I was really missing, that I really, really needed to have in my life. And so it's been a huge part of healing. My last relapse is just being with people and smiling and laughing and just being myself, So present day, I kind of have used this last relapse in my life as kind of a reset, and taken full advantage of it. I believe I'm getting everything I can out of it, learning all I can, studying it, being very curious about, all that I can learn and grow from it. And I don't want any of the pain to go wasted. And so I've kind of used it as a big reset, and I've taken an honest look, and my wife and I both have looked at what is it that I want to let go of now that I have a blank piece of paper. What do I want to let go of that was filling my life up, that maybe wasn't serving my sobriety or serving my family or God? And what do I want to keep from all that was really good, that was working? I just want to say that for people that struggle with addiction, for, people like me, it's okay to struggle with motivation. Like, I really began losing my motivation for what was really keeping me sober, and it's okay. I mean, sometimes you have to sit down as a family and say, okay, my motivation's changing. I need to re-motivate myself. I need to find a new why I'm doing this, and that's totally okay, and the main thing is to find that motivation, and for me to find new reasons I'm living every day sober, and new things I'm going after, and that allow me to be completely free to be a student on planet Earth, and that I get to bring out the pad and paper every day and what am I going to learn today? How am I going to grow today? And such a huge part of that has been learning my meditation practice and dealing with things, going deeper inward and going deeper upward, and it just being this huge thing of God and of people and how big God is and the things he's doing in the world, and keeping my focus on that. You know, I heard a guy the other day, and this totally rocked my world. He said that he kind of was realizing that life was like a big mirror. And he said, if I walked up to a mirror and I was frowning at it every day or bitter at it every day, I couldn't really get mad at the mirror for frowning back at me and being bitter back at me. And I just absolutely loved that picture, because I got it right away that, you know, what am I doing? How am I facing the world? Am I facing it, you know, frowning? Am I facing it with anxiety? And how so often it's going to meet me back with what I'm bringing to it. And I just absolutely love it. And that's the kind of stuff that I love. It keeps me motivated to bring a smile to the world and bring a star to the stars and the moon and the sun and the people of the earth, and just bring my A game and shine and be an extension of God, and let him live through me as me, and enjoy that every step of the way, even the learning. So I'm super happy about it. I love the work Debbie's doing on this channel. I hope people support her in it. She's tackling all the subjects that we have to deal with every day, boundaries and our feelings and all these things that she knows very well. And so I'm super excited, Debbie, about what you're putting together. And I can tell you right now, it's only getting better. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Stan. That's incredible. I feel fed from your words today. And I would be foolish to think I could add anything to the messages that you just spoke to us. So I just want to close out this video by saying kudos, man. I hope we hear from you again. And I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Wow. The mirror. I love it.